Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm out on the Black Mountain at the moment, which is an area west of the Brecon Beacons. Quite a remote area, you don't see a lot of people up here, which is awesome. And basically what I'm going to be doing is a recce for a course I'll be running later this year, an Escape and Evasion course. And what I'm going to do is basically check out the route, recce the route, and whilst I'm out I'll actually talk to you all, talk a bit about Escape and Evasion as we go. So as per usual in Wales, straight up a big ass feature up to a high point, and we've got some beautiful weather today, beautiful scenery. So yeah, let's go for it, let's get on with it. So Escape and Evasion, what is it? So the term Escape and Evasion is used to describe the tactics used by military personnel, and it could be used by civilians as well in certain circumstances, but it's generally a military term that describes the tactics used by people, soldiers, airmen, whatever, that are having to evade enemy forces, normally after something's gone wrong. So imagine you're a special forces unit working behind enemy lines, maybe observing a target, and you've been compromised. It's what you're going to have to do next. So once you've broken contact with the enemy, if you are in contact, you've then got to follow certain procedures, and I'm not going to go into any detail, so anyone that's going to start spouting off about OPSEC and stuff, I'm not going to start going into detail. I'm just going to talk in general terms. It's what you're going to have to do to basically get back to safety, back to friendly lines. All right, a perfect example of this is the Bravo 20 mission in Iraq in the first Gulf War, where they were doing exactly that. They were trying to stay covert, but it was compromised by a goat herder who then compromised them to the enemy, and they had to get on their feet and start moving. So they then moved down their route to escape from the enemy, and unfortunately not all of them got back to friendly lines. Some of them died, sadly. Another good example is imagine you're flying an aircraft over an enemy territory, you're a pilot and you get shot down. Whether you crash land and survive the crash, or whether you bail out, parachute out, you're then definitely going to be on some kind of escape and evasion scenario, where you're going to have to think about your surroundings and think about how you're going to actually get back to safety. So there's various aspects to this. You've got to think about staying unseen, you've got to think about your camouflage concealment, you've got to think about your route selection. So for example, I'm just behind me is a high feature. You definitely you don't want to be walking over the top of high features. What you want to be doing is moving down lower and using what they call the military crest, so you're not skylining yourself, whether that's daytime or nighttime. You want to be thinking about getting into cover using the ground, so using things like re-entrance, using woods, stuff like that, avoiding habitation, because any contact with habitation, especially if you're in an enemy environment, they're probably going to be more loyal to the enemy than they are to you. And staying off things like tracks and roads. So if you think, right, I'll get on this track here because it's going to allow me to move quicker, then you're taking a massive gamble and you need to stay off roads and tracks. So there's just a couple of kind of considerations that people need to take in mind when they're escaping and evading. And there's loads of examples of this throughout different conflicts in history where people have had to employ this. And basically it means you want to stay undiscovered whilst you're moving to get to either a known pickup point or to get to a safe country even. Like the guys in Bravo 20, they were moving to Syria, which at the time was known as a relatively friendly country, because their escape and evasion plan hadn't been actioned. They weren't going to get picked up by friendly troops, and I'm not going to go into the reasons for that, but yeah, you're before you set off on your mission, you have an escape and evasion plan set with, you know, plan A, B, C, etc. So yeah, it's one of those things that you hope you're never going to have to use, but if you do need to use it, then your life's going to depend on it. Okay, especially given the nature of conflict nowadays, where us in the West are quite often fighting people that haven't signed up to the Geneva Convention. So if you are caught, especially if you're someone like a pilot that's been dropping bombs on them, you ain't going to make it, are you? So your actions are definitely going to have a profound effect on whether you live or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to crack on. I'm going to be covering quite a long distance over the hills today, and these are the hills in question. As you can see, the only things out there are sheep. No people where I am today, which is a perfect piece of ground to be practicing what I'm doing. On the initial phase then of your escape and evasion, you want to be moving at speed. If you've got the option of actually running or whatever, use it. You may not, depending on the tactical environment. So you want to be basically putting as much distance between you and the enemy as possible. And the other thing you want to be thinking of is putting in a dog leg. So initially not moving in a direction that you intend to take, to try and throw them off your track a little bit. So once you've made that initial first bound and got distance made between you and the enemy, what you want to do is take a consolidated moment just to make sure that you're happy with the direction that you want to be moving in. And like I say, you want to be doing a dog leg to start with, and then after that actually think about your route. Make sure you're using the ground to your advantage, using dead ground, using cover, stuff like that, and then actually start moving off onto your chosen route to escape, to get back to safety. So all the time you're doing this, you've got to think about tactics, you've got to think about the enemy, how they're operating, and how you're going to operate to evade them. So as I mentioned earlier, route selection is really important when you're doing something like this. What you don't want to be doing is using any known tracks, any known routes, because you know they could be used by the enemy, and you know you're going to leave sign on them as well. So what you want to be doing is hardcoring it and basically staying off all those routes and tracks and staying off skylines. So at the moment I'm probably 200 meters off the top of a skyline, just over to my front here, to make sure that my body's not skyline against, you know, the horizon. If you just have a look over there then, so if I was walking along there, anyone that's on any lower ground than me would be able to see me walking there. So that's one thing that's really important. And you do want to be leaving as least sign as you can. I mean, that's not always going to be possible, but you definitely don't want to be, you know, leaving any footprints in tracks and stuff. So that's why you stay off them. Another thing is, you know, good fieldcraft of every type is really important. So you know, definitely don't leave any discardables anywhere, because that's blatant evidence that you've been there, and they can pick up information as well, you know, like bits of ration pack with British, you know, markings on it, English writing and stuff like that. Also your kit. So you can see I'm wearing a pair of sunglasses on my head here. 100% I wouldn't be wearing those because they're going to give off a glint at distance. You want to make sure all your skin's covered up as much as possible, you know, for camouflage concealment purposes, and get some mud or cam cream on any exposed skin to help you blend in with the environment. If you've got the opportunity to camouflage your equipment, you know, if you're not in so much of a rush that you need to be moving at speed, you get the opportunity to stop, camouflage your equipment as well. So get some foliage, break up the shape of your outline by getting it on your rucksack or your belt kit or vest or whatever you're wearing, and on your head as well, and your shoulders if you can. If you're wearing a helmet, get some camouflage on that, and on the shoulders, on the top of your rucksack, to break up the shape of your body. Obviously when you're moving it's going to be obvious, but if you do need to go to ground, then that's going to help you blend in with the environment if you've got a little bit of local foliage attached to your kit, you know, for camouflage concealment. I'm thinking of all those standard camouflage concealment stuff, you know, shape, shine, shadow and all that good stuff. So yeah, basically your soldiering, your skills need to be a very high standard when you're doing this sort of thing, because literally your life depends on it. But can't really complain today, because for once in Wales the sun's out and we've got some fantastic views today. Checking out across the valleys here as I'm moving along. That's some awesome views today. Another thing to think about then is if you ever need to take a halt to either rest, read a map, take a drink, whatever you need to do, you need to have a good think about your concealment, and what you want to be using is something that's not obvious. So what I've got just next to me here is a small kind of sinkhole or something, and someone that's gobbing off on the hill up there, and some small little folds in the ground. There's some little holes. These would be perfect, especially the ones that got these reeds here and stuff. You could get yourself in and amongst and get a bit of concealment. So it's not obvious as a piece of cover, and also from a distance, from even 100 meters away, you wouldn't be able to see those ditches because of the shape of the ground. So it'd be a perfect little place to stop, you know, get a drink of water, maybe dress your feet if you've got blisters, do a nav check, all that sort of good stuff. And potentially, you know, overnight stop if you got to the point where you're exhausted, or you need to hold up for somewhere prior to, say, getting picked up by a helicopter or something. You stand off a certain distance, hold up for a couple of hours, whether it's, you know, during the night or daytime, whatever, depending on how you're operating. But yeah, you got to think about your concealment whilst you stop as well. You wouldn't just stop like I am now, get your map out whilst you stood out in the open. You basically get yourself into a bit of cover like this, and then carry out whatever admin you need to do. Another thing that's very important then, very relevant to escape and evasion, is knowing your enemy. So what tactics do the enemy use? What's their TTPs? What's their capabilities? How big of a group do they operate in? You know, do they normally work in small teams? Do they work in sections, platoons, companies, or bigger, you know, battalions, brigades, like the Russians often do? Because that's going to have an effect on how you move and how you do your, you know, how your tactics are actually put into practice. So what capabilities do they have? Do they have night vision? Do they have thermal? Do they have mobility? Do they have vehicles? Do they have armour? Do they have artillery? Have they got air? You know, have they got the means to pick up teams and place them on your line of advance if they can predict where you're going? You know, like helicopters, stuff like that. Do they have drones? You know, are they going to be able to potentially observe you from the air? So that's, you know, if you were operating in Ukraine right now, that's a massive threat. But you know, in other parts of the world, it may not be, even though it is massive. You know, it's a growing thing, big stuff. You know, have they got the capability to put various cameras on the drone? So things like TI and II. Can they weaponize the drones? All this sort of thing is going to affect how you operate and how you react to those potential threats. Also, you know, what sort of skill level are they at? You know, are they base level? Are you fighting against an indigenous population? You know, for example, in Vietnam, the Americans quite often were up against it because they was fighting people that knew the ground. and you know, knew how to operate in the jungle far better than what they did, apart from maybe their, you know, special forces guys. Will they employ local people for their specializations? You know, so for example, in Borneo and Malaya, we employed IBAN tribes people to actually act as trackers for our troops. They could spot things in the jungle that stood out a mile, compared to our guys that, you know, had never been in the jungle before, or only briefly, and they could track the enemy. So they could potentially employ trackers and stuff to boost their capabilities. So all these things are, you know, things you're going to have to consider, and no doubt there's lots more things as well that I've not mentioned. If anybody's got any suggestions, put them in the comment section below. And as you might hear now, I'm moving back uphill, so I'm gonna work hard on that. Catch you in a bit. So I've been on the move for about 3.5 hours now, and it's just after 6 PM. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop to have some tea, some scoff. I've not eaten since breakfast this morning, so it's about time I got some calories down my neck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this kit off, have a sit down, and yeah, get some food on. Now, if I was on Escape and Evasion now, firstly I wouldn't just be stood here in the open, I'll be, you know, making use of cover. But food wise, then there's no way you're going to cook anything, for obvious reasons. If you're lighting any kind of fire, doesn't matter whether it's a blue flame or not, then that's a flame, and it's going to be spotted from miles away. Also potentially smoke, depending on what you're going to be using, and maybe even noise if you're using a gas cooker. And then there's a smell as well. There's a smell of the actual cooker, and the smell of the food which you've cooked it as well. It's going to smell more than if it was just raw eaten out of the pack. So one thing you're going to have to employ is a thing called hard routine, which means, well, one of the things is going to be eating your food cold, not making yourself hot brews, that sort of thing. It also means, you know, all the other things we've already spoken about, so using the ground properly, staying away from high ground, using low ground, using cover. It means discipline with noise and with light, so not having any light out even at night, and potentially, you know, carrying away all your human waste as well, so your crap and your pee. But yeah, that's kind of taking it to the extremes, you know. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to stop here, get some scoff on, and yeah, chill out for about half an hour or something. All right, mega. This is the Molly belt kit from British Tactical that I've been trialling. So really sound, really well put together set of belt kit. Obviously you choose whatever pouches you want, they're not set because it's, you know, Molly, you just put whatever you want where. Yeah, I've been looking forward to trying this out, and very solid buckles, great flipping manufactured, you know, really well put together. I'll do a full review on this, but yeah, so I've got a pouch here just for my emergency rations, got an emergency Tabasco in there as well, obviously. So I've got actually more than a spooner. I've got more than 24 hours worth in there, because I've actually got a mixture of MREs, British rations and noodles and brew kit, and a couple of brunch bar type things as well. But yeah, I've got what, 1, 2, 3, 4 meals in there, so and 3 brunch bars, 3 brews, so yeah, enough for at least 2 days there. So I'm going to crack on and get some scoff. This one here, I've got my mug in the top, metal mug, and I've got a water purifier. I've done a review on that, the Sawyer, and this is like a little bushcraft windshield stroke stove thing, and I'm going to be using that in conjunction with my Des Catty's little stove, which is very nice of them. He sent me that to try out, so I'll be trying that for the first time in the field today as it goes. So that's our little stove set up, and I've got the actual cooker from Des there. So this works with the old mess and stuff like that. another consideration then, when talking of escape and evasion type skills and drills, with the hard routine, is just your general, you know, your skills need to be really on the ball, really disciplined. So anything that you're not using there and then gets put away, so you're able to move literally a second's notice. So, you know, I've got my rations out. The ones I'm cooking now are in the tin, they're getting cooked. Everything else gets put away, and I'm going to close the pouch up as well, so at least that's ready to go, that pouch there. Then I'm going to put the pouch to the cooker away, and that little container of meths. Again, I'll just close up that pouch so that, you know, for whatever reason I had to do a runner and I wasn't able to take the cooker with me because it was too hot or something, at least I could pick my webbing up, throw it on my back, and the stuff ain't going to just drop out all over the place. So this evening we have got chili con carne. Very nice. And tonight's secret ingredient will be, ta-da, surprise, a bit of Tabasco. Marvellous. It's alright, that. So whilst I'm here, getting a bit of food on, getting a brew. Also what I'm doing is making sure my feet are okay, so if I've had any blisters or anything coming up, then I'll be sorting them out. I'm alright. And the other thing I'm going to be doing is checking my route, checking my navigation, make sure I'm happy with my next steps, where I'm going, planning the next part of the route, and yeah, making sure I'm completely happy with that side of things. So yeah, concurrent activity, as they all say. Okay then, after a quick check of the area to make sure that you've 100% not left anything there, because it's not just litter you're leaving now, it's sign if someone was looking for you, you know. As I mentioned before, you don't want to leave any trace that you've been anywhere. You don't want to give any evidence of who you are. So yeah, you always check your area before you move off. Kit back on, make sure you've had a good look around before you move off, and then off we go. So that's the sun just going down there now. There's a nice gentle breeze out at the moment, it's great for keeping me cool. Because I'm pretty hot now, even though it's cooling down, because I'm moving constantly. Anyway, yeah, I've been on the go now for about 6 hours. Covered a fair bit of distance, and up and down some quite challenging terrain. Still got a couple of k's left to go. But you know, that's the name of the game. You need to get to where you need to get to, and you just keep going. But it's all good. Let's do it. Just stopping off here briefly then. You can probably hear in the background there's a really good water source here. So because it's coming off the high ground as well, and it's not like, you know, just getting drained off farmland. Perfect little water source, and I've used one of my water bottles up today, so I'm just going to get a replay. Check that out. The horse is just sat there munching away on the grass. Hello mate. Okay then, so I'm in my overnight stop now. That was a long old day, 8 hours of walking, and the last couple of hours was in the dark. It's always a bit harder to you know, stay motivated, and also just keep going, and it's harder in the dark basically, isn't it, for everything. Anyway, I'm going to crack on, get my admin done, get my shelter up, and get my melon down. I'm not going to mess around. So catch you guys in the morning. Morning guys, so it's 7 o'clock. Had a fairly good night's sleep, not too bad at all really. Weather's changed a little bit this morning. It's kind of overcast, and there's a little bit of kind of, I don't know, sort of drizzle, really light drizzle in the air, so nothing too bad. What I'm going to do, I'm going to get packed up and get moving. Alright, let's get to it. So that's all my kit packed away now. I've done a final check in the area to make sure that I've not left anything behind, I've not dropped anything, like little wrappers off sweets or anything. So kit on, let's go. As I moved off there, then put a dog leg in again just to try and confuse any trackers on my direction of travel. You can probably see from my surroundings that the weather's changed massively. There's actually a bit of rain in now, and it's turned a bit cooler and windier. Not too bad though, but we have a look here. You can see that, but yeah, there's a bit of rain coming in now. That's good for the event because this will help cover noise, and you know, nobody wants to be out in rain and in bad weather, do they? So it'll potentially make it harder for the people trying to hunt you down for any kind of tracker force. But for the evader, that's what you want, isn't it? Because for you don't care. It's just basically getting on it and getting back to friendly lines. So I've moved into a forestry block now, and what I'm doing is I'm using this for cover as I'm moving. To my right then, about 100 metres, is a track. Obviously it's a lot easier moving down the track, but as I said at the start of all this, that's the sort of thing you need to avoid, tracks and roads, because the enemy could potentially be ambushing them, and it's just a lot more obvious for you to be using them. So if you're going to use it as a navigational feature, you need to handrail it rather than walking straight down the middle. The other thing, you're just totally exposed, aren't you? You can be seen a lot easier. So using natural cover like this wood line is absolutely critical when E&E in. You know, if you haven't got wood lines, you can use the ground, like dead ground, re-entrance, stuff like that. But if you have got natural cover like this, you need to make use of it. This obviously makes going a lot more difficult, but it's better off being more difficult than you being captured and killed. Yeah, so just cracking on through this now. As you're moving through areas then, especially if you have a change of vegetation, i.e. you come to the edge of a forest and you need to move across open ground and it might be unavoidable, what you want to be doing is carrying out a listening halt, or what the Americans call a SLLS halt, which is stop, look, listen and smell. So what you're doing is you're just going to stop, take a couple of minutes and just observe and listen for any signs of any movement. So I've just come to the edge of the forest here, and what I'm going to do is just go silent and still and just look and observe, see if there's any sign of the enemy. And if you do have any kind of viewing aids on you, so you know, binoculars or a monocular or something like that, then you probably want to get that out and have a little look as well. But it's basically just going still and quiet for a couple of minutes and just observing the area. And it's amazing what sights and sounds you can pick up once you've gone still, because it's a lot harder to do that when you're on the move because of the noise you're creating. When you're happy, kit away if you've used anything, and then move off. Okay, so I've been moving now for about, well, just over an hour since I moved off this morning. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to stop and get some breakfast, because I didn't have anything before I moved off. But obviously it's important to keep the fuel going into your body, keep your energy levels up, so you can stay alert and stuff as well. So what I've done is I've picked an area here of quite thick forest, so it gives me natural cover. And then what I've done is I've fish hooked into it. So basically I've moved off my line of march, circled round and coming from the rear, so I can observe the actual path I was, well, you know, it's not a path, but the route I was taking, in case anyone was following me up. That gives me the opportunity to either ambush them or to hightail it before they actually get to me. I'm going to stop here and get some breakfast now. So for scoff this morning then, I've got barbecue breakfast beans, which is a new one on me. It says, oh, it's got bacon in it as well, so can't be bad. So we'll see what that's like. Got my kit here ready to go. Only stuff out that's necessary. Okay, good to go. Okay, so that's breakfast done, all packed up, good to go. Still got most of my brew left in my flask, so I'll have that later. Usual drills, check the area. Yep, nothing left there, no trace. And done my map check, and then off we go. Again, first thing you're going to do when you move off is a dog leg. So move off in a different direction to one that you intend to go in, and then move on to your route that you're intending to move on. So let's go. So the final phase of your escape and evasion, if it all goes to plan at least, is going to be your extraction. So when we're saying extraction, it's being extracted by friendly forces, you know, by a helicopter or whatever. The normal means is by combat search and rescue, CSAR, but it could be by, you know, a vehicle or whatever. So anyway, at this point you're obviously at your most vulnerable, because you're going to be tired, probably going to be hungry, you're going to be scared, all those things. Plus the enemy's been out looking for you, aren't they? So you're going to have to be very careful at this stage and not get complacent. And the way it'll work is there'll be a set down procedure laid down in your SOPs for signalling the aircraft or vehicle, whether that's by visual means or whether that's by electronic means. I won't go into that because I don't want to start going into stuff that's classified, but that'll be laid down in your SOPs. So what you want to be doing is standing off your extraction point, observing, making sure there's no enemy in the area, waiting for the aircraft or whatever to turn up. When it's landed and you've been given the signal to approach, then basically you're going to get to the chopper and get out of dodge, and that's it. Hopefully that's all gone well. So anyway, hopefully this has all been of interest to you this last couple of days. Yeah, it's quite an interesting subject. It's one of those things that people talk a lot about, but some people don't know what they're talking about. They've just been, you know, regurgitating what they see on YouTube or in books or whatever. I've done the Sea Level C course 3 times now, so I've kind of got an idea about this kind of thing. So anyway, if anyone's done one of these courses before, or got anything else I'd like to add, any little hints or tips or anything, put them in the comment section below. And as always, stay prepared.